Good afternoon, everyone. It's myself, Kenneth Gamble here. I'll be joining you for our session live at the waterhole. Feels like quite a while since I've done one, but in hindsight, I think it's only just been about a week, but it's really nice to be back, and I hope we have a great session today. It's certainly quite windy in the Lowveld down here on the edge of the Greater Kruger. Hopefully the weather's a bit better in some of the other locations. That being said, please send through your questions. It's a live and interactive show, and it's always fantastic to share some insights and have some discussions regarding these topics. Today we're starting off at Mena Kwena on the Boteti River in Botswana. Certainly a lot of action going on. The zebra are out in full force today, getting a bit of water. There's a few elephants that are getting lost in the crowd there, but I'm sure they're not too bothered. It seems like they're focusing more on the fresh water source. Seems to be a bit of a dominance display, possibly a cow chasing a young bull away there. Elephants are quite active, chasing each other around. I see that one elephant appears to not have a tail, bit of a stump tail. But yeah, once again, everyone feel free to send in your questions and comments. It keeps the show live and interactive and entertaining, I'd say. Penelope mentioning that it's been hot or 2 hot and humid days in KZN. It's also been quite warm here in the Lowveld in Hoedspruit, but today we've got some very strong gusting winds. I always find the wind a bit unpleasant when it really kicks up, but probably just a sign of some weather systems moving around in the area. Certainly looks quite idyllic today on the Boteti River. Doesn't appear to be much wind blowing there. Certainly this looks very hot as the temperatures are starting to increase now as we exit the winter season here in the southern hemisphere. Hi Jav Bunny, good to have you around for this afternoon session. It's very entertaining how the weather can change so sharply. I was fortunate enough to travel a bit in the Kruger National Park earlier this week, and mainly quite warm weather, a bit of hot winds now and then, but nonetheless quite warm. I'd say the bush is in the middle of that very harsh part of the dry season at the moment. Afternoon, Mr. Elemental. Glad you can also join us. Hopefully there's a couple interesting sights and sounds in store for us today. See, we've got a small herd of wildebeest slinking in. But yeah, just a normal day at the Boteti River here. Let's head on over to Tembe and see what's going on there. Very peaceful scene here at Tembe. Does not look windy at all, too windy at all. Obviously this pan is always a bit protected or secluded from the wind. It is a bit lower down. Got some very placid elephants. I only see one at the moment, but they seem to just be having a nice drink at the pan. A few impalas in the background. I must say, no matter the weather, Tembe always looks very idyllic and peaceful. I see our elephant is he's full of water. He's moving off. Maybe gonna take a bit of a break in the shade there. I think if I had to describe it or think of Tembe in a different way, it would definitely be a holiday resort for elephants. It always looks very pleasant for them at this watering hole. But Tembe has always been quite a stronghold for elephants. Back when the population was very fragmented and threatened in South Africa, Tembe was one of the three last surviving wild populations of elephants in South Africa. So it is certainly a place they've always found refuge in naturally, in part thanks to the very thick and dense sand forests that help protect them. One of your other areas being Addo, or the Addo Elephant National Park, with that thick brush, and of course Knysna, although there is not there's only one elephant left in the Knysna forests. I think we're going to mosey on and see what's going on at Tau. Quite a busy scene at Tau. Plenty of zebra and wildebeest milling about. Quenching the thirst a bit. I'm sure it's also just as warm in that part of the country at the moment. Got a few waterfowl also just resting, a few Egyptian geese, and I imagine red-billed teals. Can't see too well, but that's normally the waterfowl we have here at Tau Game Lodge. So that's always interesting. The game never looked truly too terrified or worried about the crocodiles at Tau, even though they are definitely around. The animals seem to operate without too much worry. Got a large herd of impala running through there. Kind of just looks like the wildebeest and zebra are looking at them, wondering one of two things: why they're messing around, or is there something chasing them perhaps. But all the zebra and wildebeest seem quite happy. There's a lot of prancing and galloping taking place. And they're clearly quite excited that it's a Friday. It's been a long work week for them. I see we've got another herd of impala running through. Quite a large herd, I must say. I wonder what's got them running. Oh, everyone's getting a bit busy there. There's baboons running in different directions. There's wildebeest going one way. I'm not sure if the wind is maybe swirling a bit and they're picking up some scents or smells or something. A bit challenging to pinpoint what's going on where, because you've got everything running in a separate and strange direction. You just have to maybe keep an eye out and pay attention. Maybe something is going on. Certainly puzzling. It would be quite amazing if we had some cats join us at the waterhole today. What's interesting for me is, as much as we had the game heading from right to left, and one would assume that's maybe where something spooked them, it's interesting that the baboons went in the opposite direction, kind of towards what we perceive as something being out there. It's very interesting. There's certainly something that's increased everyone's caution or attention, caught their attention. But once again, just maybe one of those mysteries of the bush. There could be a cat lying deeper in the brush, and everything's kind of just caught a bit of a scent of it. I do see some wildebeest in the background there, so I'm not entirely sure. It's very interesting.
Oh, wow.
What does it take to handle the wild? Balance. Determination. Focus.
Yaku!
And gear that can take a beating so you don't have to.
My name is Takudzwa Panda Msesani. I really want to film an artwork, and it has been my goal. I'll be just keeping my eyes open. The worst driver is Jen. He's driving, yeah. You gotta be holding on back in there, yeah? Like in bumps, and I mean, it happens when, these things happens when you're actually going for animals usually. But then, yeah, he's driving, yeah, you gotta put your seatbelt.
Ah, the bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold. A mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
making the most of the waterhole here today. Certainly looks a bit cloudier up here in Aldornia today. Definitely a sign of the changing seasons that's taking place. Slowly but surely everything's inching towards the wet season, thankfully. And we've also got a few eland coming to join us. It looks like a cow and some calves. Seems like the cow is not too worried. Calves are definitely a bit more interested in drinking. I must say they both look relatively the same age. I almost wonder if they're not perhaps twins. Oh, no, there's a third calf. I think there's just a few animals from the herd that we can't necessarily see off to the side there. It'd be rather doubtful that one eland cow has 3 or 4 babies. That would be quite a shock, and certainly not very normal in wild animals. Liz, you'd like to know if the animals let their offspring drink first? I think it's more, I'd maybe say age, or I don't know if I'd use the word wisdom, but survival instincts. I think you find the adults are a lot more cautious, just knowing what dangers hang around a waterhole, etc. So a bit of age and exposure to such certainly makes them more aware to be careful or cautious at a waterhole, whereas I think you find the younger animals are maybe a bit less experienced and will tend to go straight for the water, not thinking or worrying about too many of the other things that could catch them and eat them. But I think in general most antelopes will approach the waterhole as a herd, and everyone will start to drink. I think you generally notice the older animals will be a bit more wary or careful and cognizant of possible dangers. I mean, you can kind of see it in this situation. These 2 young eland have not really stopped drinking or raised their heads to watch around them or be careful, compared to the older animals that are watching and being cautious and taking note of their surroundings. These younger animals have had their heads down for the majority of their time at the water, and I think it just speaks a bit of their inexperience or lack of experience thereof. Hi Auntie, good to have you. It's always a treat to visit Aldornia. It's certainly one of those idyllic spots, if not number 1 or 2 in the top 10 of my webcams to watch. Can always count on some going-ons at Aldornia. Just always unfortunate that the lions tend to come to Aldornia in the evenings when we're asleep, or not live. Maybe one day we'll have to have a special show where we wait up at night for the lions. Just a few lone zebra left now. Doesn't even look like they're drinking too seriously. Just trying to grab a few last gulps. A few oryx sneaking in for a sip of water. They certainly appear a lot more cautious when it comes to approaching the waterhole here.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
My full name is Maxine Gaines. Most people that know me really well call me Max. I'm a mum. I have two boys. One is 16 years old and one is 14 years old. I'm a very, very proud mama of my two boys. I've just always been passionate about leopards. I'm passionate about their conservation. I'm just passionate about everything to do with leopards. I love them. There's some ellies that we're approaching now.
The light on her as well is absolutely gorgeous.
So we are going to enjoy the rest of this sunset.
Wow, 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 this is absolutely crazy.
And thank you for joining us. For myself and Cam, we will see you next time.
That's quite nice. We've got a hippo leaving the waterhole. Definitely not standard procedure this time of day. Seems like he's also giving the Egyptian geese a piece of his mind there. I presume maybe the water's a bit cold. I want to do some sun tanning. You can actually see this bull is, well, this hippo is busy defecating, but doing in such a way that he's marking his territory. Hippos do that by spreading their dung with their tails, and that just sends marks and establishes or that bull's basically leaving his calling card saying, this is my territory and anyone else is welcome to know of my presence. Tristan, you'd like to know how long I've been a guide. So officially I've never full-time been a guide. I've got a separate career. A lot of the other stuff I do is part-time, so I often do bird guiding in and around where I stay, or do guided bird groups, etc. like that. Same with Wild Earth. It's or the Live at the Water is a part-time thing for me also. Yeah, so it's more a passion project for me. I enjoy spreading or sharing my passion and knowledge for wildlife, and hoping to inspire others or get them also as excited about our wild spaces, and at the same time, yeah, in my personal capacity, trying to help conserve animals and wild spaces and do my bit. I also often get involved in a lot of volunteer projects with habitat restoration, etc. There's a number of invasive alien plants that have popped up in southern Africa and are taking up massive amounts of habitat and space. So it's a project I'm quite passionate about, trying to restore natural vegetation. Certainly appears this hippo is just on a meander. I'm not entirely sure what's possessed him to get out of the water and just stand with his nose in the dust there. I mean, in a way it certainly looks like he's asserting or showing off his dominance, and the first thing he did when he got out was mark his territory a bit. That yawn we just saw is him also. Well, it's always a form of aggression or dominance. So he's maybe just flexing a bit on the beach there for everyone. It appears like he has a bit of a sore, a scab on his back. At one point I thought there was maybe an oxpecker on there, but he's definitely got something on his back. I'm not sure if it's a wound or it's maybe some mud. Quite interesting. Melanistic marble, you are 100% correct. I'm a very passionate birder. Something that got quite drawn into about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's something I'm very passionate about. I was always a nature lover, but I don't know, something about birding just opened up even more to nature for me. So birds are something I always enjoy running around after in the bush, but along the way it's taught me a lot about other animals and trees and plants and ecosystems. But yeah, birds are one of my big passions. It does certainly appear like this hippo's got a bit of an interesting wound on his back. I can imagine how painful it is to lie in the sun with something like that. I'm sure it's quite uncomfortable. I'm not sure if he's maybe trying to, in a way, entice oxpeckers to clean the wound a bit or keep it clean, as much as they do pick scabs and will cause wounds to bleed, which is a bit detrimental. They do at the same time also keep wounds from going septic, or they'll pick at the dead flesh or rotten flesh. So kind of in a way surgically keeping it clean. But that is always a contentious argument between people whether oxpeckers are beneficial or parasitic in their relationship with their hosts. Well, our hippo's gone to sleep, so we're going to go back over to Tao and see what's going on there. See, as we moved off, there was a bird of prey there, probably an eagle of sorts. I see we've still got the wildebeest running in circles here at Tao, but at least we've got some elephants also having a nice mud bath. They're really flicking it up there. It's one thing I'm always envious of elephants for. It always looks like so much fun for them to jump and splash in the mud. Myself personally would not like to get myself caked in mud. It's quite a mission to get it off afterwards. But that's certainly one perk the elephants have going for themselves. Recycled teenager just asking, or you're asking, can zebras recognize each other by the pattern of stripes, or do they do it by smell? So it is a combination. There is research that has been conducted, or that is indicative of their ability to recognize certain patterns between each other, and they can recognize members of their herd from these patterns, or facial patterns, etc. But they also rely quite heavily on their sense of smell. That's also quite a lot how mothers and foals are able to recognize each other, and also due to that close bond they often have with each other, they're very in touch with each other's smell. And obviously also in nature it's always a bit of a handicap or a risk if you rely too heavily on one sense. So in low visibility conditions where maybe they can't see too well, grass is long, etc., that's where something like smell plays a big role. And obviously their sense of smell is well adapted. It's also how they can sometimes pick up the scent of a lion or other predators. So yeah, it is a combination that they use to recognize each other and garner certain information. Ellis, you'd like to know what might cause a very bad wound like that. I imagine you're referring to the hippo. 90% or off the bat, but yeah, 90% of the time it would be a fight with another hippo, I'm sure. What's quite interesting, that one is quite high up on the middle of its back, and I can't normally with the way hippos fight with each other, you would expect it more on the rump or the sides or the front. And the way their mouths are shaped, etc., I can't really imagine a hippo biting another one right on top of its vertebra on the spine. So what could be the cause of a wound like that could be lions. At night, sometimes when hippos are grazing, lions will come across them, and I think you often generally see it a lot more in the dry season when animals are in a bit poorer condition, they're weaker, not feeding as well, or haven't got access to as nutritious food as they would in the wet season. So yeah, there's plenty of footage out there of lions jumping on the back of hippos like that. They don't necessarily really bring them down. I think it's more just a nuisance, but the lions will certainly try their best to tire out the hippo if they can, or wear it out. So that could be what we're seeing with that hippo's back injury. Maybe a lion was on top there and a bit of scratches took place. And obviously it takes time for those scratches to heal, and based on the slightly stagnant conditions the hippos stay in the dry season with the waterholes or water sources, it can get a bit infected from time to time. And obviously the attention from the oxpeckers can also slow down the healing process, but like I said, it's catch-22. They also help as much as they keep it maybe open. It's certainly been a lot of action here at Tau. We've had the wildebeest running all around in circles. Sometimes people refer to wildebeest as the clowns of the bushveld, because they always seem to be running around or galloping in various directions for no apparent reason. You see this elephant bull has got quite a nice dip in the mud. I think it's something we were talking about a while ago. We don't often see the elephant bulls really get down and dirty in the mud. They generally seem to just splash themselves a bit. So it's nice to see him also really enjoying his mud bath. See, he's having a nice refreshing drink of water now. Taking a big stretch there to get to some of the undisturbed water. Definitely knows how to do it. So you've got one of our sneaky crocodiles hiding near the elephant there. It's always amazing how well camouflaged they are. You assume it's maybe just a log or some elephant droppings with coloration, but once you pick it up you can make out those details a lot better. Well, seems like action's moved on. We're gonna go see what's waiting for us at Safari Hook. Oh, there's a nice little gathering of elephants here in Namibia, and some springbuck at the back there. This is quite nice. It's not a cam I've had the privilege or pleasure of doing on Wild Earth yet. I've watched it a few times in my own capacity, but I haven't been here myself in person or with live at the waterhole. And these a bit of dominance being displayed here. This young bull is chasing away a few of the younger animals. Quite possibly a bit more of a mature bull. The Namibian elephants tend to be a bit smaller on the tusk side of things.
Let's go and take a look. See you out there.
Join our expert guides at dawn for a live, immersive safari as the bush comes to life.
Found ourselves a chameleon, and look how he's changed color.
Every sunrise brings new discoveries.
Pound for pound, a leopard is one of the strongest cats around.
Ask questions, share your thoughts, and connect with nature live and in real time.
Great excitement, great happiness.
Start your day with adventure.
Out here, every wild moment matters, and as a Wild Earth explorer, you won't miss a thing. Watch the Wild Earth channel, ad-free 24/7, where you can even rewind and watch something again. Get access to behind-the-scenes videos, fireside chats, and access to early travel offers. It is the best way to stay connected and be part of the Wild Earth family.
See that larger female seems to be scratching themselves a bit on that dead tree. Apologies, very larger or young male. I just hope they don't push too hard on it. I'm sure that tree is not maybe very stable anymore, since it is a dead tree, unless it's been artificially placed like that. Melanistic marble, as far as I'm aware, I'll double check myself, but Safari Hook is on the periphery of Etosha, so it is pretty much that that region. As far as I know, it's a private concession, but I think it does adjoin or is open to the Etosha system. It does certainly look like that type of habitat. From the one trip I was able to do in Etosha a few years ago. It does look like that environment, but at the same time, Etosha itself is just specifically the pan, but the greater environment like it is, it's quite a dry, arid area. Amazingly supports a massive diversity of bird life and animal life. Tanaka, you're asking what are the benefits of blood sweat hippos or hippopotami. So it's not necessarily blood sweat, it's more a substance which they secrete that's red or orangey. But yeah, its benefits are it acts as a natural sunscreen. It helps absorb UV light or reduce sun damage to their skin. Scientists have found that it's got antimicrobial properties to it, so obviously with all their fighting and wounds that they have, something like that will go a long way in keeping their wounds clean and helping in their healing. And at the same time, also being quite similar to a sunscreen, it also has moisturizing properties. So quite a few benefits, and just another amazing way in which animals are so well adapted for their environment. Gonna head over back to Tower Lodge. Sounds like there's some excitement happening for us there. Just catching up on a few more questions, but Recycled Teenager was asking, why do buffalo and wildebeest stampede when there seems to be no cause? In my experience, you won't often see buffalo stampeding for no real reason. If they do stampede, it's probably because they've caught the scent of a lion or something has spooked them that they assume to be danger. But generally, when buffaloes on their large herds, they're quite placid. They seem to do everything at quite a slow pace, and they're quite happy to go about their business. But yeah, generally, if you see them stampeding in one direction, they either smelt something that means it's danger to them, or they have seen the danger and they've decided to hightail it out of there. Wildebeest is a different one. Going back to that comment I made about them being the clowns of the bushveld, it's a good question why sometimes they run around in circles or seem to chase each other, or full tilted in one direction and then 5 minutes later full tilted back to where they came from. That one's open for discussion. Let's maybe do some reading myself, but it does defy logic in a way. Very peaceful to see all these elephants there, happily spread out, and got the water buck living up to their name, eating a few water plants on the water. It's always actually nice to see them living up to their namesake. Certainly, most of the time one often sees them maybe near a waterhole, but actually on dry land. Unless of course you're on the Okavango Delta, then I think you tend to see them also living up to their namesake quite a bit. It seems like the elephants are getting going again. And just a last question from Kim, if you get striped hyena in Namibia. As far as I'm aware, no, it's mainly just spotted hyena. Maybe perhaps on the Angolan border. I'd like to double check myself on that one, but that's quite a dry, deserty area on that Angolan border or near the Kunene River, etc. But as far as I know, the striped hyena is restricted to northern Africa and those arid areas. As far as I know, in southern Africa we've only got the brown hyena and the spotted hyena, of which in Namibia there's quite a lot of brown hyenas. Probably more in the western dry areas is brown hyena territory, and then more the eastern sections and Etosha, of course, there is definitely spotted hyena in those zones. I remember the trip we did to Etosha, we saw spotted hyenas a few times.
name is Maxine Gaines. Best part of the job, gosh, I just love everything about guiding. I love being able to observe animal behavior and animals behaving naturally. So for me, that's by far the best part of the job. And so what we do here at Wild Earth is develop those connections with the people that are viewing, and maybe just light a little spark that says, you know what, I want to be involved in protecting this ecosystem.
Ah, the bush, full of beauty, wonder, and absolute chaos. And now, all that madness has its own show. It's called a Wild Bush Week. The countdown of the most outrageous, heart-stopping, and sometimes downright ridiculous wildlife moments of the week. Lions throwing their weight around. Hyenas gate-crashing the buffet. Leopards doing, well, leopardy things. Each week, it's a fresh reel of safari gold. A mix of drama,
She's just got an impala, everybody.
danger, and a healthy dose of laughter. So, if you fancy a highlight show with bite, and I don't mean just the animals, tune in to a Wild Bush Week. You bring the tea, and we'll bring the tusks, tails, and teeth.
Be a species forever, but species are continually ever changing. Every day, every time they breed, something about them changes. Humans themselves, over the 1,000, 2,000 years of civilization that we've had, we've changed quite a bit from our early ancestors or early civilized ancestors. Just the nature and life, for that matter, is a constant state of change. It's been seen in a lot of birds as well over time, how their habitats have spread as they've adapted to changing environments, either by man or other climatic conditions. Quite often in birds, there's at one point species, then genetic data shows they're actually not separate species, they're one species, or they get separated and one initial species becomes two unique different species. So yeah, it's always a constant change, and just by animals surviving and trying to keep going, they are busy adapting to changing climatic conditions. So that may have been a long-winded one, but yeah, I think it's the best way of painting the very complex picture of adaptation and survival that animals go through on a daily basis. Hi there, Joan Mello. Happy Friday to you as well. Welcome, of course. It's always a fantastic way to spend a Friday. I'm myself looking forward to the peaceful weekend. Maybe going to sneak in a few birding sessions. There's a local birding challenge going on with one of the birding apps called Bindo in South Africa. It's called the Spring Challenge. It started about a week or two ago. So my competitive streak is going strong, and I'm trying to find as many birds as possible as the summer migrants return to Southern Africa as well. So I'm going to go dig around in a few unique habitats and see if I can spot a few more birds for my list. And we have a few starlings running around. I think I also saw one running out of the camera frame. There's a few white-browed sparrow weavers popping in. Gepotso also, or you're asking, how do elephants decide when to split or merge herds? I see it quite often. That's also an interesting question. I don't know what necessarily leads them to make that decision and branch off. I think the merging of herds is quite temporary. And if they do merge, I assume I would feel that they're probably rejoining old herds or relatives that they're aware of. I don't think they'd just join another herd out of the blue. I think what leads them to splitting the herds is food resources, water resources, maybe unable to keep up with the current herd during the dry season. So a cow might take her youngest and her second youngest calf with her and kind of focus on just surviving the dry season herself at a slower pace. That may lead to her leaving the herd in that regard. But it's certainly an interesting one. You would wonder why they'd be willing to spend years and years together and then out of the blue just split up. Well, let's leave our elephant to slowly enjoy the rest of his time at the waterhole. We're going to see what's waiting for us at Lentora. Certainly much more pleasant weather here at Lentora. Nice clear blue skies. The water's a bit dirty, but looks very sunny and idyllic. We've got quite a few birds coming for a drink. I think I did see a superb starling, and there's a couple of doves also making the most of the water. This is generally the one bird you tend to see the most often coming to a waterhole to drink is doves, in part due to their diets of seeds, etc. They need to drink quite a bit of water. Tina, from what I can see, it's either a laughing dove or I don't know, probably not a Cape Turtle dove. I must just check what doves are present in this part of Kenya. We've got some helmeted guinea fowl coming in for a drink. There was some superb starlings. I think they've left, and then some of the smaller doves they look very similar to the emerald spotted wood doves we get in southern Africa. I'd just like to make sure, because there can be slight differences, but they look like emerald spotted wood doves to me. And yeah, then we've got a lot of helmeted guinea fowl. But with birds it's always good to make sure. They may look very similar, but each area does have its unique species. And especially with a large distance between southern Africa and Kenya, the chance for different species is very high. I see we've got some impala also coming in. Just a bit of a question we missed from Keith. No, it's definitely not a silly question. It's how we learn. Asking if elephants suck small fish or frogs when drinking. I don't think so. I think when the elephants come to drink, the frogs and fish move out of the way, or avoid the large pachyderms that have entered the water. I'm sure it could possibly happen, but I think the elephant would also probably spray it straight out of its nose. Maybe tadpoles are at risk of being sucked up in certain situations. It certainly wouldn't make a big difference if they spray it out their nose and it goes into their stomach. Might give them maybe a bit of an upset tummy, but I don't think they'd be any the wiser. But I think majority of the time the frogs and fish are able to avoid that fate. As much as the elephant is sucking in water, I don't think it's such a strong sucking force that they can't escape, if they stayed that close to the elephant during the process. Let's head on over to Tembe, see what's going on there. It's a bit quiet here at Lentora. We've returned back to the elephant resort. Seems like everyone's having a fantastic day at the pool again. Slowly meandering in and just taking things very easy during this warm part of the day. Got a few impala also taking it easy in the background there. Looks like most of the elephants are also vying for a bit of shade. I can imagine the sun is beating down on them. Ansi, you wanted to know what the difference is between a dove and a pigeon. Just in short, there's no real hard biological difference, but generally doves refer to the smaller sleek individuals, and your pigeons tend to be the larger ones, like your city pigeons or ones you maybe see in towns, or your larger ones also in the bush. But that's the short answer. Just maybe more naming convention for us humans. I'm going to leave our restful elephants and see what's going on in Founders. Got a very cold Egyptian goose here. What looks rather chilly. See, the wind is blowing and its head is well tucked up. I think it's doing its best to stay out of the cold breeze blowing. Mr. Elemental, on the topic I've never seen buffalo at Lentora myself. I must say most times at Lentora, generally it's birds and smaller creatures. Of course baboons and monkeys and a few impala. And I've seen an elephant once or twice, but never actually noticed buffalo in that part of the world. I do know at night there's a few more cat visitors that come through. I'm sure there is buffalo in the area, just depending on how dry it is. They might stick to the more green or watery habitats, maybe swampy habitats. Buffaloes obviously bulk grazers, so they need access to good grazing and also a lot of water. It's quite nice to have a close-up view like this of the Egyptian goose. The call is sometimes a bit harsh, or maybe jarring is the right word. It can be a bit rough, but they are beautifully marked geese compared to some of the other geese out there. They do look very striking. They're a good example of range expansion. They can be found throughout parts of southern Africa, and Africa for that matter, where they used to actually be quite scarce or restricted to certain habitats.
We'll see you out on the safari.
It could be a very exciting morning.
Even a hyena coming into the action as well now. Oh my word! She's stalking the hyena now. Leopard, hyena, lion, all together in one shot. Oh. This is action-packed.
Would you like to know what an elephant's favorite food is? You could ask me questions like that in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive from the heart of Africa. Over here. Watch Safari Live and connect with nature.
And that's it for this morning's drive.
She's just got an impala, everybody.
And we're going to be heading out and seeing what animals we can find.
Safari, wine, and waterfalls. The ultimate African adventure. Sip South Africa's finest wines. Experience a world-class safari among Africa's iconic wildlife. And stand in front of Victoria Falls, one of the natural wonders of the world. All this can be yours with Wild Earth Travel, where Africa comes alive.
Southern African cameras. As far as Hoedspruit is concerned, we're not necessarily getting a cold front. If anything, temperatures are climbing the rest of this weekend, but there is a very strong wind blowing. I don't know if some of you maybe heard it in the background with my microphone, but I think it's a combination of factors. I think that the low pressure and high pressure cells are starting to move around throughout the southern hemisphere, specifically in southern Africa, and with that comes winds in at this time of year. Generally August is a bit more windy, but it does feel like it's a bit later. But yeah, I think it's more just a shift in weather patterns at the moment. Earlier in the week there was areas that were misty in the Kruger, etc. So I think it's just everything switching around a bit. And those impalas look like they've got a nice little beach spot there, nestled on the soft comfy grass right next to the waterhole. That one is completely asleep on the ground. So I would say they are living the life over there. At least they're good. There's only one or two ways the lions could approach them, / leopard for that matter. Keith, I do agree with you. It is interesting to note that the angle of the goose's leg, nature is truly amazing. I was reading an article this week about how cuckoos migrate, and it is truly just amazing considering cuckoos lay their eggs in another bird's nest, and a different species ends up raising that cuckoo, but somehow when that cuckoo grows up, it knows how to navigate back to where it came from, where its parents came from, and knows to migrate back, spend the time there, and then when the time is right, it also knows to head back down to its breeding grounds to continue its life cycle. But that's always been truly fascinating for me, how a bird that is not taught this knows how to navigate back, and it's intrinsic in its DNA, etc. But those instincts are just amazing. Cat father, you'd like to know why geese tend to stand on one leg when sleeping. Very good observation. There's also a number of birds other birds that also do it. Flamingos, storks, a few other waterfowl like ducks, etc. So yeah, that also would indicate to you in general it's not just one species, or it's obviously not just one type of bird, but then it also the benefits are quite broad reaching. But the main reason is just to save body heat. Obviously, those are parts of their bodies that are exposed to the elements, is not covered by feathers. So if they bring it in, then they can stop the loss of body heat through that exposed flesh. And in the opposite, when it's very hot, you won't see birds really standing on one leg. They tend to stand on two legs. Storks even urinate and defecate on their legs to help cool it down. Obviously quite smelly, but that's one way they do it. And then also just by resting on one leg, they also help rest their muscles. So you often see them juggle or switch between legs, but it's just another way for them to rest their muscles. And obviously they're quite adept at keeping that center of balance, so it's not a difficult task for them. We're gonna leave all our restful animals here at Tembe and go to Kwamaratane, one of my other favorite cameras. Oh, that's quite nice. We've got two white-faced whistling ducks here. And, watching them feed, this is quite entertaining, watching them bob up and down. They're obviously feeding on aquatic vegetation at the bottom of the waterhole here. They are such beautiful ducks for me. These are definitely one of my favorite ducks. I always enjoy watching them. Also got such a pretty call. Their name is very descriptive. It's a good definition of how they make their call. It's quite a pretty whistle. Quite a nice treat to watch these guys. I see certainly the duck on the left is a bit more worried about keeping watch. The one on the right is quite happy to focus on feeding. Just a bit comical of how they dip down like that. Also another good example of keeping your center of balance here. How the duck is essentially hinging forward and able to balance quite well while it reaches to the floor of the waterhole for food. Taxi lady mentioning that you had a cuckoo in your garden last year being fed by a pipit. Yeah, it's amazing how obviously in the beginning the deception is quite clever, that the parent birds don't know it's an imposter, but yeah, it's always funny for me once the cuckoo gets quite large that the parents continue to look after and feed it, even though it's very apparent that it looks completely different to them, and in some cases also it's double their size. And I guess at that point I don't know if they're just used to it or they are beyond assured that it must be their offspring, even though it looks very different. But yeah, nonetheless very interesting. There's been quite a bit of research on the early stages of young fledglings, that cuckoos, and there's also smaller other birds, surprisingly brood parasitism has evolved a number of separate times in different birds, not just cuckoos, but there's other birds like honey guides, indigo birds, cuckoo finches, etc. And it was noted that the brood parasite, their markings on the beaks very closely resemble their host chick's markings, and even the egg shapes or egg colors, pardon me, also very closely resemble. And it makes sense because in those early stages the host parents, if they figure that out, they will eject the baby or not feed it, etc. But it's interesting for me how much effort goes into that, and then later on, by the time the chick gets bigger, that the parents continue to raise it without too much objections or issues. So it's quite interesting that there's so much adaptations that take place in the beginning to try fool the parents, and then after a while it's just accepted in a way.
At Wild Earth, we believe every story has the power to create change. That's why we've launched the Wild Earth Impact Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to conservation and social impact. By showcasing conservation stories, we can change lives, protect nature, and empower communities. We have partnered with Empowers Africa to accept tax-deductible donations from US donors. Your donation will help fund critical programs that support our mission. Join us and be part of the change.
Do you want to know why impala are the most common antelope we find here in the Kruger National Park? You can ask me questions like this
in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live. Connect with nature.
Every week, the wilderness delivers.
And that's why we're here.
Drama, chaos, crimes, humour. All moments you'll never forget. We've counted them down, argued about them, and finally picked the very best. From rare sightings to classic bush showdowns, this is nature's weekly highlight reel. Sharp facts, bad jokes, and the wildest top 5 you'll see this side of the savannah. It's not just a show, it's a wild bush week.
If you love watching Wild Earth, here's a little tip. Become a member. You can gain access to the channel ad-free, you can rewind and re-watch sightings, and you can join our Tuesday live safaris. There's also behind the scenes videos, fireside chats, and every Safari Live episode, whenever you want it. It's just a better way to stay connected to nature.
Party has decreased somewhat. Definitely, or more than likely, quite a warm day today in this part of Namibia. Got a few springbok coming in to drink, and a few oryx. I thought that was a warthog for a second, but it looks like a log to me. Warthogs are not very common in that part of the world either. Also, springbok are very beautiful antelope for me. It's pretty much our one and only gazelle in southern Africa. I think if you can call it that, but yeah, they'd be the most similar looking of the gazelle or our southern African version compared to Kenya's gazelles, etc. Also quite pretty when they jump and display, but they are very beautiful antelope. Don't often see them much in South Africa. They're quite restricted in their range. They tend to stick to drier, harsher habitats. So you will never see a springbok in the vicinity of the Kruger National Park. Kind of funny how that oryx is stretching over that log to drink. I don't know if he's looking for a headrest or he's using it as some sort of cover. Not that there are crocodiles in this part of the world as far as I'm aware. I do think if you probably introduced a crocodile in one of these pans, they would be able to survive. But as far as I know, these pans don't have crocodiles. Lucy, you'd like to know how long or what the lifespan of oryx is. It's roughly about 15 or so years. Obviously a lot of factors can shorten it, such as drought or predation, or obviously predation, but drought is one of those things. I'd say off the bat most of your antelope tend to be around that 15-year range, give or take. Obviously the larger an animal is, it tends to have a bit of a longer life cycle. lifespan compared to your springbok, for example, or smaller antelope. Ooh, quite a big dust devil blowing through here. Completely covered the springbok for a second. But yeah, your smaller antelopes will always live a lot shorter than your larger antelopes. There's quite a nice large herd of springbok that's come down to drink. It's always quite funny for me watching them wade up to their necks on water. You wouldn't think a small antelope like that would be willing to get so wet. Dudenbug, you'd like to know why do antelopes like springbok and gemsbok that aren't necessarily water dependent often go into the water like we've just seen, whereas kudu seldom do it? I think, yeah, it's a very interesting adaptation. I mean, very few other antelopes will go that deep into the water. Zebra will sometimes wade in. One would assume it's maybe to, especially animals in these large herds, like springbok, we said with zebra. Obviously oryx not always so often, but maybe to avoid disturbed water they're trying to focus on drinking cleaner, purer water that's not too disturbed from all the hooves that have churned it up. Could be from parasite or for parasite relief, escape a bit of heat. I mean, obviously when you're watching from the sidelines it never feels as hot, but yeah, it's quite an interesting one. I don't know if it's because they spend so much time away from water. When they do get the chance, they try and make the most of it to cool themselves down and have a proper drink. Kudu are also relatively dry adapted. You also find them in quite harsh habitats throughout southern Africa. You could say they maybe don't want to expose themselves as much. They perhaps want to head back into the thicker bush, so they quickly have a sip of water and then slink off. And maybe because they spend so much time in shade or cooler environments, they don't feel the need to cool off. But these are a lot of assumptions from my side, because it's quite an ironic or weird one. I'd like to read up more on it, but it's very interesting. You would certainly think the animals that are adapted to not really having much to do with water, they would drink it out of necessity and carry on, that they wouldn't really want to spend too much time in it or with it. Oh, there's actually quite a spread of animals on the other side of the pan. A few sneaky waterbuck and some elephants. Anyway, we're going to carry on. We're going to go have a peek at El Doño. Two impressive elephant bulls having a quiet drink. One of them has given us the full rear view. The other bull is just peacefully sipping out of the water inlet there. I did notice just before we moved on from Safari Hook there were some interesting birds flocking in the background. I wonder if they maybe were not sandgrass. So this actually, the bull drinking appears to be our bull with the snare injury that he was helped with. Seems a bit of a chunk of his trunk missing there. I haven't seen him in quite a while. I think the last time I saw him was about a month ago. It's good to see that he's doing well. So the other elephant here is not too keen on greeting us in person or with his face. He's quite content to show us his tail. It's quite funny, it looks like this elephant bull's almost got socks on, having waded into the water or stepped into the water. It looks like he's got a few small socks on. I thought there was maybe some zebras on their way with those oxpecker calls in the background. So the zebra are always very antsy at this water, and they just gave the elephant a fright in the process. I'm sure he's not appreciating that at all. He's probably thinking, you guys really didn't need to do that. So he's not impressed with him. Quite interesting. I always found the zebra a bit jumpy here at Aldonia, and I almost assume it's maybe the elephant, but I don't seem to really be even reacting. And if it's just the lion activity in the region, maybe gets him a bit uppity. And the bull certainly seems to be giving them the evil eye. A bit tired of their antics. I think he certainly feels like his peace has been interrupted, and he's having a nice peaceful drink. It's amazing how quickly one zebra herd can make this waterhole seem rather small and squished. Whereas when there's one or two elephants, it looks like quite a nice, decent sized waterhole. But it's all about perspective. I guess it's those funny different ways of measuring. So the waterhole is probably about as big as 5 elephants, or as big as it's probably about 30 zebra, if I had to guess. Yeah, just weird and interesting ways we can use animals to measure things. Looks like a quick pit stop for some of these zebras, filling up the tank and then back onto the feeding game. We've got some more zebras coming here to Safari Hook. Had a bit of a connection loss at Aldorniel, but that's perfectly fine. There's plenty of action here at Safari Hook for us. Got a large herd of zebra heading in, kicking up a lot of dust as they come in. It'll be interesting now to compare if the zebra wade in quite far into the water. One thing that does make me think it is related to them trying to drink the less disturbed water is how outstretched their necks are. But I see this young elephant bulls try lay down the law a bit and terrorize the poor zebras. Also got some buildable sneaking in there at the back. A bit calmer. It's quite funny in a way how the elephants want to chase them, but then when the zebra and the oryx run out of the water, it seems like they almost get a bit of a fright from the commotion. Really love to see those birds that are flocking. Strong suspicion they were sandgrass. It'd be very cool to see some sandgrass. Can definitely hear some blacksmith lapwings making some noise and flying around there. I'm gonna go have a look at the Wangi at the Safari Lodge there. That's a nice treat, a marabou stork, a member of the Ugly Five. Normally we only rarely get to see them at Vic Falls with the vulture feeding, so this is quite nice to see one a bit more up close. Can also admire a bit of his ugliness up close. They are not the most pretty of birds, but they are still very cool birds. I always enjoy seeing them. Quite large birds as well. But they were certainly not blessed with the best looks.
This is an unbelievable afternoon.
What does it take to handle the wild? Balance. Determination. Focus.
Yaku!
And gear that can take a beating, so you don't have to.
Would you like to know at what age a buffalo calf gets its horns? These are questions that you can ask me in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
The greatest wildlife spectacle on planet Earth. We'll see you there.
Looking very content with his spot on the waterhole wall there. They always look so inquisitive when they're walking around, seeing what they can take advantage of. So we've now got 4 compadres. I'm rather sure there's quite a large flock in the background, probably near the rest of the waterhole there. I say the way of drinking doesn't seem super effective. I think a lot of the water they try to scoop up is lost in the process, but nonetheless I'm sure they get enough to drink. The way they're walking around this waterhole, I don't think they're specifically looking for water. I think they're looking for some unfortunate amphibians that might be most definitely on the menu. I seem to be carefully looking around. Obviously, being the opportunists that they are when it comes to scavenging or finding anything they can eat, frogs and other amphibians will definitely be high on the menu. Even fish. I don't think they're great fish catchers, but they will definitely make use of the opportunity. You'll often see them at drying up pans or water sources in the dry season where catfish start to get trapped. They will then grab a few of these trapped catfish and make a decent meal out of it, or out of them. So there's a small disagreement taking place then. A few beak claps. I'm rather certain these marabou storks know there is a few frogs hiding in this waterhole, and I think they're just trying to see if they can snap any up. Quite entertaining watching them walk around and around this waterhole. It'll be quite cool if actually one of them does maybe flush a frog. I don't want it to be too great for Mr. Frog, but nonetheless. Oh, there! One of the storks just caught something in the water there. I don't think that was a frog. It looked very frog-like. Sorry, got a bit excited there. I'm going to go over for the last bit of the show towards the Toro. That was unfortunate. We had a nice Torako there came in, but I think we're going to go back to Wangi. We're having a few issues here again.
For years, we've shared virtual wildlife. Now, let's experience it for real. I'm Lauren Arthur, and I'd love to show you my amazing home here in the Greater Kruger of South Africa. This 5-night journey is an exclusive connection to my piece of untamed Africa. I live here in these gorgeous landscapes surrounded by epic wildlife. The wild is calling, so come and join me.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
Would you like to know the difference between a male and female wildebeest? You can ask me questions like this in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
Real, you say the best kind of roadblock?
Absolutely. Look at
Emojis. Hello, girls.
Chidzana na tsima ra ntumbuluko Dlovukazi ya xitsundzuxo hosi ya rhumela.
How cool is this?
Looks like our undertakers or marabou storks have retired from their frog hunt at the water hole there. It seems like they're looking what they can find in the waterlogged soil. I think they're also still looking for frogs, but I imagine they're not going to find much there. The water's quite shallow, there's not much cover. I don't think a frog would really hide there. But as with all things, fortune favours the bold. Certainly looking very intimidating with their wings raised up like that. That's quite funny now, they're all doing it. I imagine they're maybe drying their feathers out a bit, and that have got a bit wet with the splashing and grooming in the water. Also a way to thermoregulate. You can try release a bit of heat. And we can actually see they're also grooming a bit there, cleaning a few feathers. It almost looks like a synchronized dance routine that they've got going on there. Still quite entertaining. They're also all got their heads to the same side while they groom there. And this is definitely a synchronized dance group of marabou storks. It was nice to have a bit of entertainment just before the end of the show. Pity it's nearly the end of the show. Could have pondered a few dance names for this group of marabou storks, but we'll keep it in mind for next time. It's quite entertaining how it's only the three of them doing it. The other marabou storks are keeping themselves busy. Once again, everyone, thanks very much for a great live at the waterhole session. I hope everyone has a great Friday further, a great weekend. Enjoy the sunset drive later. It was a great session, and I think we were spoiled with a lot of interesting different number of birds, and there's always some great wildlife sightings. Thanks again, everyone.